So
Something to that.
yeah,
Yeah.
make it till you make it.
Nope. Yep.
Oh yeah, sure, of
Group
course.
shot. All right, look handsome, gentlemen.
Oh, I'm doomed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sounds appealing.
See, you're warming up. I like that. Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Someone said chili while waiting in line to start the panel earlier, and the thing that upset me most is that you weren't there to groan. Because you know what they say, chili today, hot tamale.
Pretty good. It was right there. It was right there. Good for you. Good for you, man.
You take the small victories where you find them.
You'll have about 30 seconds to squeeze in more puns before I shut it down.
I told a pun in here on a panel yesterday. Guy was apparently he has over 90 shirts with cats on them. And he said that on the panel. I was like, well, it sounds like it was quite a catalog.
Well, in his writing, was he a punster or a plotter?
No.
It can't tick to 1 o'clock fast enough. There it is. Okay. Hey, all right.
3,
Welcome
2,
to the digital media track and our panel. Be a podcast guest pro. How to get booked and get invited back. I am your moderator. My name is Clint Hall. I am a sci-fi fantasy author. I have 2 books out, and I just signed a contract for a trilogy that'll start releasing next year.
All right.
Thanks, Clint. All right, way to
Yeah.
go, Clint. We know you worked really hard on that. Okay, I will let everybody else introduce themselves as soon as I'm done stealing the stage. But first, what we're going to do is talk about the charity this year. And we have a fantastic, very exciting update. DragonCon is committed to helping the community through raising funds and providing a dollar-for-dollar match of $125,000. That's not enough. They're upping it to $150,000 to this year's charity. This is NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. You are not alone. No matter what you have been affected, no matter how you have been affected by mental illness, please know that you are welcome here. NAMI Georgia's goals are advocate at the county, state, and national levels for non-discriminatory access to quality healthcare, housing, education, and employment for people with mental illness, educate the public about mental illness, and work to eliminate the stigma of mental illness, supporting individuals and families affected by mental illness. I have a QR code up here that you can scan to make a donation, and I don't know if we have one anywhere else, but if you want to come make a donation, okay, you can just come right up here and scan this. Now, before I let the panelists introduce themselves, I actually kind of want to get a read of the room. Everybody here wants to get booked on podcasts. That's why you're here, right? Yay! All right. Okay, just one person. All right, this is gonna be really easy for you. Okay. No, how many authors in here? Any authors? Okay, yeah, got some
Right.
hands. Okay, great. How many podcasters? Podcasters yourselves? Yeah,
Yay.
fantastic. Filmmakers, direct. Okay, yeah,
Yay.
filmmakers, direct. Comedians? How about comedians? Any comedians in here? Hey, all right. Okay,
all
cool.
right.
Okay, fantastic. So that's kind of who we're talking to, and we will try to tailor our responses accordingly. Now, let's get to the people who are more important than I am. I would like the panelists to introduce yourself and what you do, and especially as it relates to podcasting. Go ahead, Bob.
So I'm Bob Magoo. Are these on? Yep. Can y'all hear me? All right. I'm Bob Magoo.
Hello.
I'm best known as the author of the Jubal County Saga, which is a series of books about a redneck wizard with a crippling meth addiction. I also do a ton of podcasting. I do my own podcasts. My oldest is Book Spirits Booze. It's been running for 5 years or so. But I've also guested on this guy's podcast, and I've done a ton of shows for the Go Indie Now Network, which you should all check out. So, and I've probably at this point guested on, 20 or 30 other podcasts.
I'm Darren Kennedy. Are the mics on? Okay, I'll speak up then.
Hello. Tap on your mic.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm Darren Kennedy. Day job is I'm a family physician. Night job is I like to write contemporary fantasy and paranormal thriller. I've been on a few podcasts, and I'm here to learn and to talk at the same time. And I look forward to seeing what comes of this conversation.
Amazing. Hi, everybody. My name is Ming Chen. You might know me from the TV show Comic Book Men, or also do whatever Kevin Smith tells me to do. If you're a Kevin Smith fan,
As do we.
ever since the show ended a few years ago, I said, well, what do I want to do now? And I opened up 2 podcast studios in New Jersey. I rent them out by the hour to podcasters, both beginning and experienced. And I love helping people create podcasts. I love podcasting, but I really love being a podcast guest. So it's an honor to be here with you guys.
Awesome.
Hey everyone, my name is Jeffrey Nix.
Hey.
That's how we do it. So I am an author. I have some stuff out that is free to read. It goes 2 chapters out a week. I also have some free stuff to read on my newsletter. I am on this panel because I have been able to wiggle my way into a couple of interviews, and usually by being on a panel, I have been able to talk to people who have invited me onto their channels. And one of my big successes is our friend from GoND Now. I was able to.
I like how he's just playing it cool too.
I
He's
was
just up
able
here
to-
like we're not just shouting him out.
Yeah,
like, this
I
whole
was able
time.
to bring
Yeah.
together as much interest as my boring life has had in a 30-minute section to trick him into bringing me back again. So I consider one of my big successes just being able to talk good enough and make words so that people will either read my book or ask me to talk about anything other than my book.
And again, I realized I didn't even mention that I am also a podcast host. So I host a podcast called The Experience, Conversations with Creatives. It is simply that I just have on creative people that I think are interesting. That's too many, honestly, too many authors. Enough. Yeah, enough. No, because all my friends are authors. So, but also writers, directors, musicians, actors, tattoo artists, chefs, anyone who I think is creative, is on to have a conversation. So, what my goal for the panel is to take you through the whole process, right? Because we're trying to get booked on podcasts. So we want to talk about how you identify which podcast you want to target, how to approach those podcasts, and the different ways that you can go about getting booked. Once you get booked, how to be an excellent guest, and then what you need to do after the recording is done. And what I want to start with is the common misconception that I got to try to go get on a really big podcast. So, because that's not always the truth. So what I'd like to start asking the panel, and I'm going to start with you because I'm going to let you use my mic, is what you think that people need to be thinking about when they're trying to choose what podcast. Hey, there we go.
Right.
Joe Hart,
Yeah.
everybody!
Give it up. Give it up for the man. Give it up for the man.
Host of the Wise and Nerdy podcast. Hey, what do people need to be thinking about when they're trying to get booked, when they're trying to decide what kind of podcast they want to get booked on?
I honestly, I wouldn't worry about it too hard, because you're probably not going to be that great on your first podcast. So maybe, maybe you are. I hope you are. It took me a while to get comfortable
That's a good
speaking
call.
on mic. And so maybe you start out by not going for your dream podcasts. Maybe you, and like I'm honest, I have been on some pretty niche out there podcasts. I'll pretty much speak on anything. One of my favorites, I was on the Horse Girls podcast. Yeah, it was a romp. But until you get your sea legs under you, you don't have to go for, well, this is my perfect topic. This is what I got to be on. Get out there, explore. There's a podcast on everything. You may be an author, but you may also love to cook. Maybe you go dip your toes into the cooking podcasts first and kind of save up and then ask your dream podcast. Just a path you can take.
Yeah, Darren, what do you think?
I think when you're looking for what you want to do, I'd be like, which podcasts reach out to the people that I am trying to reach?
Yeah.
That's you're doing the podcast because it's fun and you want to get out there. But I mean, if you're a chef and you're on a podcast for science fiction media, that's not going to move your needle all that much. And so I would say, number one, figure out where are your people, and then number two, realize that the podcast wants you on there because they are promoting themselves in their podcast. So you want to pick one that's going to be a good relationship. And then number three, understand that if you are getting onto podcasts, even if that podcast is not big or your dream podcast, that is a thing that you can use with your social media, your newsletter, and say, hey, everybody, I was on this podcast and this podcast this month. And then when you do that for this podcast person, they're going, wow, that person promoted me just like I promoted them. I'll keep talking with my podcast buddies. And that's how you build things. That's a couple pieces.
That's amazing. I look for basically three things. One, how dedicated is their audience? Do they have a rabid audience that hangs on every word every time? Are they waiting for that next episode to come out? Do they buy other merchandise? How rabid is the audience? That's one I really look for. I listen to the hosts. If it's a couple hosts or hosts, I can vibe with. Maybe somebody that's like I could be friends with that guy.
Sure.
We could carry on a great conversation. I look for that one as well. And the third is this podcast. They put out episodes. Great. Do they promote?
Yeah.
Do they post? Every time they post a new episode, do they put it up on social media? How do they market? And how would they market the episode that I'm going to be on? That's probably that's very very important. In the din of podcasts out there, how do they promote themselves? How they market? Will they promote my episode when it comes out? So those are three things I really look for.
Yeah, I also think it's important to think about what your goals are because I remember when I was first setting up my pen name, I had no way to capture audience. I didn't have my website. I didn't have a newsletter yet. But I had met a dude named Jeff that went to a lot of Dragon Cons who had an improv YouTube show. And we got along really well. He kept inviting me to panels to talk about martial arts because I didn't have particularly well doing books, but I could talk about how good CW was in Kung Fu show. And so I wanted to go on his show just because, like, it's a great way to kill an evening. And that is an absolute real thing to do. If you want to make a friend, I also don't necessarily think you need to have someone appeal to your audience because having a friend in the community can give you a new audience or they can introduce you to the person who's going to help. And it grows a network, grows a friend. It invests in you as a person, which means no matter what project you go on to next time, you'll be ready and equipped with the support network to make it happen. I think the other thing to consider is similar to book marketing. I've heard people talk over and over again, like, I'm about to start my first book. Where do I need to put it out so that people will hear it? And one of the first things that I would always tell them is, can you make a good book? Because if you can make a good book, don't go in front of people yet.
Yeah.
If you have a good product and you have eyes on it, the rest will do it yourself.
That's true.
So if you know where you would be a good podcast guest, that might be one of your first questions. Because if you can get on the biggest thing in the world, if you can get Tim Ferriss to talk to you and you absolutely tank and it's his worst performing episode,
Yeah.
that will do you no good.
Right.
So like Bobby over there. Bobby and I got to talk a little bit last night. I think that I could have a really fun conversation with him and it would be random and intriguing enough that someone would be interested in listening to it. I do not think that I could write a newsletter about AI technology or talk to people about that. And then beyond that, if you want to see if it fulfills your target audience, that I think is just gravy on top.
Darren, you touched on something that I actually do a presentation on this topic as well. And it was something that I think is really important too, is that every podcast you go on, look, obviously it's great to reach more people, assuming it is the right audience. Even if the audience is zero, for a lot of us when we're starting out, like we may be going on podcasts that have an audience that is virtually zero, it is still a thing for you to promote, right? And there is that. I am not against being deceiving in how you present yourself. However, when you say, "Hey, I went on this podcast," it raises your perception, right? It raises the perception of you sort of as a brand. And so I think about the publishing world. When publishers see that you're doing things like that, and they may know that it's a podcast that has absolutely no audience, but they still like to see that you're doing things, because when that spotlight is then shining on you later, when they give you those opportunities, they know that you're the kind of person that's going to go out and promote yourself and market yourself.
Adds legitimacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely does.
Also within psychology research, that's referred to as social proof.
Yes.
If you can associate yourself with someone who has values or standing that you want to have, then there's a bit of transitive property to that. It's one of the reasons why people always make a joke that married people seem to get hit on more, because you have shown that there are people who care about you and you are worth caring about. And if you can show that you can go on a podcast, and all of a sudden more podcasts are going to be willing to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, that podcast is they're gonna ask you questions and bring stuff out. And so even if that podcast has no audience and you don't, when people do it, at the very least, you have created a thing that is about you.
Yes.
And that is useful in and of itself.
Right. It's for going, because at some point, a lot of us are going to have to build things like a media kit. And, trust me, sometimes when you're building that media kit, especially when you're starting out, you are scrapping for bullet points. You are scrapping for one more thing. You're like, boy, this would look a lot better if I had 3 things instead of 2. Right. And that third thing is very valuable. And that, yeah.
And I on my website, you can go. I have a Spotify playlist of all the podcasts I've been on,
That's
and
great.
I
idea.
have like the occasional super fan that actually goes through and listens to all of them. And so they learn a lot more about me because they hear about me in unique conversations that they probably won't hear anywhere else.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's also a good point because these are enduring digital artifacts. The
Yeah.
same reason a lot of people like books, they continue to generate value the longer they're out.
Sure.
So again, that's one of the reasons why I think you should go to places where you're good. But also, if you can go to a place where you don't have an audience now, but you know that you're gonna
Sure.
have the most interesting take on Horse Girls, and once you have a
I
good
did
book
not.
out, this is gonna that podcast
Irrelevant.
Yeah, that's gonna be a long tail, and anyone who's looked at calculus knows that. Thank you. That long tail ends up generating more.
To Bob's point, make sure if number one, have a website, and then number two, have one of the pages on your website. One of my pages is interviews, and I have a link to every either text interview, whatever podcast, do, and just every time you get one, open up your Wix or whatever, create another link, put it on there, and you keep track of them because and don't get behind. Don't be. I need to go find the last 5 years worth of interviews I've had. Don't do that. Do them as they come.
Okay, so I want to now okay. Congratulations. We have identified the podcast that we want to be on, right? The perfect podcast for you. It's got the right audience, it's the right size. I want to start with Ming on this one. When you found a podcast that you want to go on, and I want you to give both personal, right? Like how do you do it? How do you go about getting booked? But then also just general advice that you may have for people who are trying to go get booked on podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, I just reach out. I mean, most podcasts have some kind of way to contact them.
Right.
Have a Facebook page. Hopefully they have an Instagram, TikTok, whatever. And yeah, I'll just reach out.
I mean, a cold DM, right?
Yeah, cold DM
Yeah.
or just a cold email.
Yeah.
And you know, you can put together a pretty great pitch. You know, I've been on these shows, put together
Sure.
either the website that you set up with the page,
Yeah.
link with all the podcasts you've been on embedded in there, linked up, and you know why you want to be on there. Of course, tell them you know I've listened to your show,
Yes.
listened to some
Yes.
episodes. You know, don't make it sound like a form letter that looks like you've sent it out to 50 million people.
Yeah.
Put some personal touches in there, and tell them why you want to be on. Maybe cite some specific episodes you've listened to and some points. You know, I heard the last episode. It was cool when you talked about this. And I would love to be on. And listen, content's hard to create. A lot of these shows are.
Yeah.
They're looking for guests.
Yes.
They're looking for guests. They're looking for guests that listen to their show as well. So if you can prove that you've at least listened to 5 minutes of it, that goes a long way. And yeah, it'll pretty good chance you'll get booked.
That's right.
And yeah, and even if they have a backlog of episodes to release, you know they'll get you in, and if it's a great episode, they'll probably move you right up to the top.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. I think especially with newer podcasts that are starting out, they are looking for guests, and it can be as simple as asking. And I know sometimes we feel like there's this perceived barrier, right? And one thing that podcasting has taught me is you're going to be really surprised how often people say yes. And you're just so glad that you ask. And if they don't say yes, they don't like hold it against you for asking either, right? You're not going to like sort of ruin your brand reputation or anything like that. Well, you got something, Bob? Like how do you go about getting booked for podcasts?
A lot of mine's just through networking, but
Yeah.
what I would say is, you mentioned, you know, you do a ton of interviews, and a lot of them have been with authors. And I remember one of the first times I met you, I asked to be on,
Mhm.
and you were like, "Yeah."
Oh, I was nicer than
no,
that,
no,
I'm
no,
sure.
It was basically, yes, we'll do it, but it's probably going to be a while. Like, you're
That's
very
true.
transparent. It's
That
like
was true.
you're an
Yeah.
author. I've got a lot of authors.
Yeah.
But what got me on when I was on, we didn't talk about necessarily me as an author.
No.
We talked about what it's like to be a guest at conventions.
Yep.
So if you have a unique perspective
Great
on the topic, bring that up,
Yes.
because that can move you up the line. If they've got 20 authors that have asked to be on there, what makes you different? What makes you stand out? And Clint knew from, we've done a lot of panels at a lot of different cons. He's
Yeah.
like, oh, Bob does that. He'd be good to ask
Yes.
about what that's like. And so that's what moved me up the queue. So think about that when you're asking. And yes, seriously, just ask. If you take nothing else from this panel,
Just ask.
just ask.
And to that point, all of you are sitting in a room with a bunch of podcasters. Come to events. People like to work with people they have already met. It's the
Yes.
same advice you get for I want a literary agent. I want a editor. I want a publisher. I want a podcast. Go where they are and meet them. Not everybody can do that, and you can't like go all over the place. But you're at Dragon Con. Go down the guest list. Who are the podcasters? Where are they going to be?
Yep.
Find them in the bar. Find them at this event on podcasting, and afterwards go, hey, I listened to your podcast. Let's do it sometime. I mean, this is how you do it right now.
Good old fashioned networking.
Good
Absolutely.
old fashioned
Good old-fashioned
networking.
Absolutely.
Go where they are and talk to them.
Nix, you got anything to add to this one?
Yeah, try to get on the panel.
Yeah, that's
I mean, it's half a joke, but half for real. Like, I'm going to be spending the rest of the con following Bob around with a bag of cashews and a handkerchief to dab the sweat off his brow if he needs it.
Oh, we gonna need a you need a quilt to have this sweat.
You know what's funny is he said he made a version of that joke to me at a panel 2 nights ago, but I guess now that I've agreed to have him on, he's
Yeah.
not following me around
Right.
anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh no!
So,
That,
so just know that it's conditional, that
Okay.
relationship.
oh, you
Right,
gave
right.
me a soft
Wow.
yes. I'm
I
coming
did
after you
actually.
because
No,
I've already got my pitch ready.
I think
We're
we're-
scheduling something.
I think we're
Um,
starting a barbecue-based podcast. I think it's what.
Oh,
so-
say less.
So
Oh, man.
actually, if anyone wants to put me on a podcast, I've made a lot of friends. One of whom is from Louisiana. I'm thinking of putting together an Atlanta crawfish boil at some point.
Dude.
I will charge a podcast interview for admittance. So the genuine question for me is, I think, similar to the advice I've heard about resumes, you should understand what a person is trying to achieve and the value they're seeking.
Yeah.
And then you can see if you can help them achieve their goals, because it is going to end up being a collaborator. At least for that hour, you're both going to be actors on a stage with your main goal, making this podcast the best thing that's possible.
Right.
So listening to some episodes are good. Maybe finding out if they have a type of conversation they are excellent at, or if you have a type of anecdote that lines up really well with them. I am lucky. I'm a serial dabbler, so I have a lot of things that I can try to talk about. I actually got into Dragon Con for my first 2 years from martial arts. So like, I can listen to a podcast and I can say, I really like to cook. I know a couple good ways to make a steak. I was briefly on a U.S. national team for martial arts. I learned about meta learning, so I've tried all sorts of things from bass guitar, ukulele, lock picking, Filipino weapons arts. I've written a couple of books. I want to write a nonfiction book. I have a very niche master's degree in psychology on weird things like burnout and motivation and creativity and innovation. And knowing that I have a list of topics that I can talk about,
That's
or even
great.
just like I have a funny story about how I trained myself to like Halloween. I can usually, yeah, I can usually listen to someone's podcast and be like, this person has really, really good conversations about how your prior experience informed your art. Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to tell you about how I ended up getting here.
Right.
If that's what your audience loves, I'm going to help you make a really happy audience.
Well,
And then if you can talk to them as a person and they know that it'll be fun to talk to you for an hour and bet an episode slot on for you, it's more likely to happen.
one of the places where I think that's particularly important too, one of the things I want to make sure is said here is don't fear the wait list. Okay. So for example, if someone here from this panel comes up to me after this and says, I want to be on your podcast, I will probably send you to apply for the wait list. That's not a knock. I book off my wait list all the time. But what you're talking about, those are the things that are going to make you stand out to me on the wait list, because it's not a queue. You know what I mean? I'm not just going to go down the line. I'm going to look for who I think has something interesting that I haven't had on before, or that I just think would be cool to talk about. So what he's talking about there is having those ready, because you never know when you're going to have to do it in the moment or off the cuff. You know, that's very, very valuable. Before we move on to, does anyone have experience with PR firms? Because I want to make sure that I touch on the, I love the face that Ming just made. What's your experience with PR?
Yeah, I think they're a waste of money.
I
I
kind of agree
absolutely
with- I
think they're
kind
a
of agree
huge
with
waste
you.
of money. Yeah.
Because by the time they would do you value, you probably don't need it anymore.
Yeah, and honestly, they say they're going to do a lot of stuff for you, but no one's going to promote yourself better than you will.
Yes. That's
And
true.
if you pay someone to do it, in the end, you're going to see the end product. You're like, oh, I could have done this better, and I'm out 10 grand or whatever these places are charging now.
Yeah.
I'd rather put that money into gear or
Yes.
or whatever I'm into,
Right.
or promoting myself through other means. But I think PR firms are an incredible waste of money. And that's just my opinion. But
Oh no, I agree. I've been on the receiving end. My longest running podcast, Book Spirits Booze, we have beards, we drink, we talk books, sometimes in that order. And I am on this PR firm's email list and have been for years. And it's like,
Yeah.
my brother in Christ, if you are emailing me to try and get your person on, you are, man, you're digging deep into the bench, you know? And it's like, if that's the caliber of people you're trying to reach out to, it's like, oh, someone needs to get their money back.
Yeah, and I'm in a similar boat. Now, I will say this. I do have a great relationship with a PR firm that does send me guests. Now, this PR firm specifically works with people who are sort of behind the lines, right? So these are people who are generally not visible. Like I had on a Broadway hair and makeup designer. That guy was awesome. But that's one of my best episodes ever. Music editors for like film and TV. That one kind of made sense to me, because those are people that often don't have that visibility and those types of connections. And I actually, now I've had a great experience with that PR firm, but I can tell that it's human beings sending me emails and they treat me like a human. I also get those PR firm emails where it's obvious that they used AI. They just, I really enjoyed your recent episode with Bob Magoo. You know what I mean? It's not being read out loud to me, but that's how it feels.
That's
Because
how you know it's fake.
and they're pulling things that are obviously from the episode summary. They obviously didn't listen to it. And here's the truth: I do actually still scan it to see if I think the person might be interesting, but it's almost always a no. Okay, so I just want to be cautious. I'm not telling people not to use PR firms, but I say be very, very careful with that, because there's a lot of people out there who, and I think y'all would agree, they want to sell you your dreams, you know, and you have to be so wary of that.
I got a package a few months ago, and follow me on Instagram or social media. You may have seen this. I woke up to a package on my porch with not one but 2 books on the history of Mexican cheese in America, and had no idea how this is. But it's addressed to me, huge mystery. And I eventually figured out that it was a PR firm had just randomly decided to mail me 2 copies of this book. And I actually I found the guy on LinkedIn. I was like, my friend, I don't know how much you're paying this PR firm, but I think you need to take a hard look, because I have 2 of these books. It's like, if you want me to send them back to you, I will. And he just never responded. So, but yeah, sometimes they are a huge waste.
Yeah. Okay. You got booked. Congratulations. Round of applause. Woo! We
Yeah.
got booked. All right, we got booked on the podcast. Okay. But now you have a new thing, because now you have to actually be good on the podcast. Darren, I'm going to start with you on this one, though. We want to talk about what makes a great guest on a podcast. So when you are getting ready to go on a podcast, like, what do you think you ought to do to be a good person that they want to bring back on the podcast another time?
I think one thing would be to know what you're hoping to get on into the podcast, but also I would talk with them ahead of time. You know, a lot of times they have you on for a few minutes before, and sometimes they may have some email traffic back and forth before, and it may be, what are we going to talk about? I mean, if you go in cold, there may be a lot more because you don't know where you're going. So if you go in kind of like, we're going to talk about, like, for me, it'd be like, well, let's talk about your military stuff. Let's talk about what it's like being a doctor. And then we'll talk about what it's being a writer. We're going to kind of structure it like that. And that way you can sort of put it together in your own head. What am I going to try to put into this hour together with this person, instead of coming in just straight up cold? So being prepared.
Nix, what do you think?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
First off, I don't try to tell people how to do their jobs.
Yeah.
So I have some strong feelings about what makes good conversations. I used to be an investigator in one of my old jobs, and so I tried to collect interesting questions. I would watch Hot Ones, listen to podcasts, and I noted, like, these are the really good things to pull out of people. So I usually have a list that I can use if I'm like a bit nervous to talk to someone. I can go to my list, but I'm never going to tell someone how to run their podcast or what to ask me.
Sure.
I will absolutely volunteer to do extra for them and say, like, hey, if you would like, tell me anything you're interested in, or I can give you a list of stuff that I usually think I can go off on and have a fun story about. Beyond that, I'll often tailor it. I'll know what they want to talk about. I'll have tried to do a quick Google to see if there's anything they definitely don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
I will also go to a group of my friends and I will ask them for a favor and say, hey, I'm going to be on this podcast. If it has a web presence, could you please be like me be in the chat? Could you watch
call.
it over the next week, artificially get the views up? Sometimes if I know something and I'm really excited, but again, I don't want to tell someone how to do their own show, I'll be like, I loved this guy's conversation with John from Falstaff, and he mentioned this one thing that I really, really want to talk about. Could you please be in the chat and ask him to ask me this? Because I really want to talk to them about it and I'm excited.
Very cool. Yeah, go ahead, Ming.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
No. Twofold answer. One, communication goes a long way. Communication before you start communicating in a podcast. Say I had a new comic book coming out that I wanted to promote. Or send the summary, obviously, a couple of pages, a link to the Kickstarter where you can buy the book, and then it's like, hey, if we could talk about this, and this, that'd be really great for me. The easier you can make their job preparing the episode, the better. And then on the technical side, I think a lot of these podcasts, they'd probably be doing it over a Zoom or streaming service like StreamYard
Yes.
or Riverside. So if you get your gear in order, that'd be great. Make sure your microphone's working. Just so there are no technical snafus.
Before it starts.
Yeah, before it starts. Yeah, exactly. And the better your sound in the recording, the better the episode's going to be. It sounds very simple, but if you have everything set up, if it's a video podcast, throw a Kim Kardashian $10 Amazon ring light on yourself,
Yep.
and that will go a long way in the episode.
Also, talk to your roommates about if they're allowed to open the garage or not.
Yeah, you can put the dog in the other room, and make sure the doorbell doesn't go off, and make sure you've done the dishes so your mom doesn't yell at you.
Yeah.
Goes a long way.
Yeah. Find out what time zone they're in.
Yeah.
That's key. But there's little things like that. It's little things that are going to catch you out.
Sure.
So the moment you book, put it on your calendar. Confirm the time zone.
Don't miss.
Yep.
And put in that time. If you are bad with organization, put reminders in there. If the podcast is at 7, put a 6 o'clock, reminder to go get in the room, start, at 6, I need to start winding down what I'm doing so I can be in there, get the door closed, and test your equipment then. You may have tested your equipment the day before, and it's worked great every time. But if it's ever going to go wrong, it's then.
Absolutely.
So get on there. And my goal is always, as much as possible, to be sitting there waiting for them to admit me.
Mhm.
Get there early. And also, I don't do it with Joe's network because he's a sign-up genius. It sends reminders, yada, yada, yada. Not a lot of worry there. Communication, it's so established. But if this is a podcast, is the only thing they do, touch base like the day before. Hey, are we still on for tomorrow? Just a quick message. Because maybe they're as disorganized as me and they forgot that they were, interviewing you tomorrow. So just little things are going to be what separate you from a lot of other guests.
And I'm really glad, especially me, I'm glad you brought up tech, because that is one thing that I get asked a lot as a podcast host is, do I have to have a really nice camera? Do I have to have an external microphone? You absolutely do not. It's great if you do. If you do, use it. Put the best foot forward that you possibly can. But if you don't, it's fine. It really is, especially nowadays. People are so used to hearing how an onboard microphone sounds. And also, hopefully the podcaster knows a little bit about audio editing and that sort of thing and can clean up a little bit of reverb and, background noise or whatever, that kind of stuff too. What I really want to get across is don't self-reject because you don't have the tech, right? Don't say someone else's no for them, or put yourself in a really bad situation where you're like scrambling right before because you just bought a thing and you're trying to get it all hooked up and that kind of stuff. If you're just using your onboard, I agree with you about the ring light. The ring light's a really good move. And it's really cheap. There's not a lot of excuse to not have at least some kind of light on your face if it's a video pod. But about cameras and microphones, what you got on your laptop is probably okay, right? Now, another thing that I wanted to touch on, though, is actually when you're on the podcast and you're having the conversation, and this is podcast dependent, and I really want everyone's opinion here. But so, for example, I have a very conversational podcast. And my biggest tip is I think the best guests ask questions too. which means they actually want to have a conversation with me rather than just showing up and making it. Because I have things to say. If I booked you about a certain topic, then I probably have thoughts about it too. And I don't blame people who come on and talk about themselves the whole time, because we've people expect it to be an interview, but keep in mind that it may not always be an interview. There's a difference between an interview and a conversation. And a lot of you are nodding your head. So I'm wondering if y'all have had similar experiences or similar thoughts about how you're actually conducting yourself, when you're in the podcast. Anybody jump in?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And if I did a 26 episodes of interviewing Southern fantasy authors, and you talk about don't self-reject. To this day, I kick myself for not asking the people who I really wanted to be on that podcast to be on there. But because of that, I kind of just, if I encountered anyone on the street, like, oh, you write Southern fantasy, let's have you on. And if you're not really comfortable being on a podcast, you don't have to be.
No, you don't.
No one's making you.
Right.
Don't show up to record the podcast and you've brought your friend along to also be on the podcast because you're too shy to be on it, which happened to me. So, work, talk to a mirror, just get comfortable. If we're having to pull answers out of you, I don't mind if you say ums. Like, I'm from Alabama. We set the bar low. Okay. You can all you want, as long as I get the impression that you're thinking for an answer, not you're scared to answer.
Sure.
If it gets awkward because you're not comfortable answering, because I'm not asking anything controversial, it's not like I'm asking for your sex life, but if you're not comfortable answering basic questions about your book, you probably shouldn't have been on the podcast. So get comfortable speaking on a mic. And yeah, it works so much better if it's a conversation. It really does. That organic back and forth, you will sound so much more professional if you can do that. If you are the person who can not just answer a question, but kind of throw it back, chef's kiss.
So when I was getting my degree, one of the things that we studied was selection systems and how to remove bias from them and use math and all sorts of stuff. And so you would have these incredibly elaborate systems so that you were only learning information about the job someone might perform and job relevant tasks. And you would double and triple blind them, and someone would take notes and pass it off to another person. And then immediately during that class, I had to step away and interview for an internship. And my thought was, I need to break every single one of those rules because those give me an unfair advantage. And so when I got into a job interview, my first goal was I want to show up early. I'm going to walk slowly to the room so I can talk to this person about how their day is going. I'm going to give them eye contact and a handshake because that's a personal touch that I know impacts stuff that they don't want to have. And one of my personal goals was, even if I was just talking to the person who set up the scheduling for the actual recruiter, I tried to get them to tell me something they liked about their hometown, or especially if I could make them laugh. Like, I don't care if I flubbed an answer. If I could make my interviewer laugh for a job app, I thought it was a win. And I think a lot of that works for podcasts too, because you're also talking to a person.
Yep.
And a lot of people who are listening to podcasts and interviews are getting some of their social fulfillment from it. They're doing something boring, but they want to be in a room with their friends, or they want to be in this conversation. And getting to hear two people have an awesome time and being able to imagine yourself laughing along or adding
Great point.
being like, oh my God,
Yeah.
Clint would love to hear about that one time that I was in Guatemala and I forgot that iodine and diodine were different and I ended up dyeing my tongue purple. That will make the listener love it. They're part of it. That will make your podcaster love it. Being a person and talking to a person helps. And sometimes people have very strict professional boundaries. Sometimes a person will say to you, hey man, I really am excited to talk to you. I am going to a movie after this and I have a delightful sushi day. I would like to do this professionally and make it happen, and that is absolutely okay too. If my friends say, I have a work problem, can you help me with your work brain? Then I'll turn it off. I'm not going to ask them about their day or their girlfriend. And that's another way to be a good person to someone. Ideally, it's a conversation, but if someone's coming at it as a professional, I'll match that energy too.
Yeah.
I'll just try to make them laugh before we start the camera.
that was going to be my thing. If they want it to be an interview and that's what they want, tailor to what your host wants. Don't try to
Sure.
force the conversation if it's an interview, and don't try to leave it an interview if they want it to be a conversation.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I love the conversational podcast. One of my favorite things that I love telling people is that a podcast is just a conversation that's being recorded
Absolutely.
and released to a wider audience. And yeah, I tell people, like, if you've ever had a conversation, you're halfway there. You're halfway to podcasting. The only difference is it's being recorded, maybe edited a little bit,
Right.
and released to a wider audience. The other thing I like telling people is, like, hey, speak freely.
Yes.
Editing is magic. So if you say something, end up saying something that's wildly inaccurate, it can be cut out. If you said something that might be a little disparaging, might get you canceled, that can be cut out.
Absolutely.
So just yeah, you're in our podcast space, you want me to speak freely, and we can edit anything out afterwards that you don't want, but that just don't hold back.
By the way, if anybody has questions, you can come up to the microphone. We are happy to take
Yeah.
questions. While y'all are thinking about that, I love this point too, because this is actually something that Jeffrey made a really good point of. When you go on a podcast and you're in cell mode the whole time, personally, I think it's off-putting. I think it's off-putting to the listener. I think it can be off-putting to the host as well. But when you're sharing who you are as a person and your passions, you're now building common ground not only with the host but also with the audience. And the truth is, I think you are actually, and you shouldn't. This should not be your motivation. I think you're far more likely to make a sell, whatever that is, when you are. Oh, I really love the Transformers 1986 movie too. I should go buy their comic book, whatever it is, because now they feel like they know you, and that's a lot better than trying to sell them a product. We have a question.
Yes, we actually have a question from the stream. Now,
Awesome.
this may be connected with some of what's already been talked about, but if you have something specifically that you all do in connection with this, make it useful. So this is from Jared Guy on Twitch. If this is, as a podcast host, what is one thing I could do to make things easier for my guests?
Oh wow, that's a really good question. Okay, am I the only host on here? Do we have any other? Oh, you're a host. That's right. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, number one is really it is the technical side. But what I will say, I've done this enough that I can fill the time. Like if I do have to pull the answers out of you, I can make it work. But what I can't fix is the tech side. If you cannot, or it, now granted, I am again low bar. If your cat comes on screen or your dog's barking in the background, I don't really care. That is,
Me neither.
yeah, that
Maybe.
makes you more authentic.
It's just a thing that happened
But
during
a
our
lot
conversation.
Of people, a lot of people really do care about that. So just
Right.
Again, mind the small things, the things that they can't fix. They cannot control your dog. They cannot control your microphone. So just make sure you come correct.
I actually have one since it's a host talking about a panel, but I think Darren got the gun on me and he moved before I did. You go first.
I would just say, to make it easy, I would have just a standard. Here is what you need from a technical standpoint and from a timing standpoint that is going to make this successful. And just I need you in the room waiting at X time before the time. I need you to have this, and this. If you don't have this particular thing downloaded to be able to participate in this thing, make sure you have it.
Yep.
And have I mean, it's kind of like a publisher, the number one thing you do when you're trying to get a book published is to follow the guidelines the publisher wants. But then on the publisher side is you need to have clear guidelines what you want. I would say the podcast host needs to have very clear guidelines that you can follow.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Also, if you want to mention that, you can tell me if I should edit something out to help reduce nerves.
Yes.
I was just on a panel yesterday talking about neurodivergent folks. And one of the things that is in research that's useful is if you're trying to hire people who are neurodiverse, one of the things you can do to help make it easier for them is to give them the questions in advance. They will still be able to respond authentically, particularly if you say, please don't rehearse these, but if you need to think about it so you're not caught flat foot, I think that's something you could do to be mindful of your audience. Though it might be that your podcast is trying to be very, very authentic and you let people know, I can't tell you what I'm going to ask ahead of time. I want to hear you react in the moment.
Yeah.
Both of those are fair, and both of them let people gird themselves and know how they're going to succeed.
I do that on my interview-based podcast. A lot of times I'll send them the questions in advance and tell them I may ask all of these or none of these, but this at least gives you a frame of reference. But I also one of the questions I asked was, what is an element of Southern culture that you try to showcase in your works? And I had like 6 interviews in a row that said the food.
Yeah.
And so then when I started sending the question out, I was like, hey, you can say the food if that is the real reason, but just keep in mind everyone else is saying the food, so maybe think of something different. So if you do get those questions, you can always, it's a back and forth, say, hey, these are, I wanted to talk about this, but if everyone else is talking about this, I won't.
What do you think, Ming?
Yeah, communication goes a long way. So to your point, I will ask, do you want to see the questions ahead of time? Most of them don't. Majority don't. Most people just want to shoot from the hip.
Yeah.
But if they want to see it, send them the questions and ask them. Say, is there anything here you don't want to be asked? I'll take those out. Or is there anything that I didn't ask here that you want to cover? I'll add those back in. And you brought up another great point. It's like I will send you the episode after we record it.
Yeah.
Most of the times I can send it immediately. Listen through. If there's anything you want to cut out, just let me know. And that puts a lot of people at ease. I think a lot of people just don't want to sound bad or inaccurate, and that puts them at ease. Very rarely in the conversational podcast do we ever have to cut anything out, though. I find
almost
that
never.
I found
Almost
that
never.
to be very, very rare.
Okay, let's go to our next question.
So I also started a podcast recently, and one of the
Yeah, you might want to tilt the mic.
oh
up
sorry
just a bit.
You can tilt it up.
Yeah, you can tilt it up.
Or
There you
that.
go.
Okay, yeah, man.
so
You never go full Freddie Mercury.
so I just started a podcast recently, me and my friends, and
Congrats.
one of the things that I want to go, the theme I want to go is like conversational, but I end up going more interview type. Is there any pointers that can give us that we can steer back the conversation to a conversation type podcast rather than an interview? Is there anything I can calm my guests down or something like that? So
Yeah. So you said you're doing this with your friends. So
Yeah.
you have co-hosts?
not yet, but
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay. So if
Yeah.
you were doing that, I was going to say that y'all can set that tone, right?
Okay.
Because the truth is, sometimes, and this is just actually my experience, I really want to have a conversational podcast. A lot of time people are just going to come on to do an interview, and that's okay, right? Sometimes people come on, they know what they want to say, and so maybe the best thing to do is just clear out and let them do it, that sort of thing. I don't know. That's a good question, though. Like, how do you sort of gently steer? We've talked about setting expectations, right? So setting expectations ahead of time might be a good response to that. It's like very conversational, loose, laid back, that sort of thing. Did y'all have any other tips that you think might work for getting that across?
Study Sean Evans on Hot Ones. Tim Ferriss is also particularly good. I think he also, I can't remember who it is. He has an interview with an interviewer who does really hilarious, full-bodied stuff. I want to say he's from the New Yorker, but a lot of them will talk about how to get the questions to make something conversational. And one of the things that I think is super useful is to set the tone you want to have. If I want to talk to someone as a business person who I'm interviewing, I will ask them an interview question. If I want to talk to them as a person, I will put in a little extra time to figure out who they are as a person and ask them about, like, I've heard Denver pizza is a thing, but some people in Denver don't think it is. Is that only an internet thing or is it real? And then talk to them about what they're going to do. And then they know that I care about who you are, not just what you really, really want 5 people to click on who's listened to this.
Another thing you may want to consider too, if you want it to be a conversation, sometimes you might just have to start talking. You know what I mean? And it makes you feel a little bit rude sometimes when you know that's not what they were expecting, but it's perfectly okay for you to also make your point, to answer. So it's actually a trick that I like. You ask a question, but then you answer it before your guest does. And what you're actually doing, though, is you're giving them time to think about it. It seems like you're being rude, but really what you're doing, because especially if they didn't know the questions ahead of time, you're giving them a second to think about what they want to say, but it also gives you an opportunity to create more of a conversational format.
Or get a giant red buzzer, and each
That
time
too.
they react like it's an interview, hit the "this is
There
not
you
an
go.
interview"
Yeah,
button.
That's good.
I'd also say a little warm up time.
That's
Like,
true.
Don't. Okay, you're in the Zoom. Let's start recording.
Actually, that's how I do it, but you're right.
Yeah,
You're right, though.
But you're really good at making it.
Oh, that's what I was fishing
Yeah.
for. Thanks, man.
But if that's something you're struggling with, make it a conversation before you ever hit record. Get them comfortable, kind of prime the well.
Yeah.
And then, like, just talk about anything. Just how's your day been going? Yada yada yada. Did you have any questions about the podcast? How things been going? Just get them comfortable. And if you can tell they're very uncomfortable, maybe draw that out a little bit. I mean, obviously ask are we on a time crunch? But if you've got the time and you can, wait till you see them loosen up a bit, and then say, "All right, let's hit record."
That's perfect. Next question.
Pizza.
Exactly. Hey, Big Bob. Hey, guys. So this was a really good podcast with a lot of information about how to be a good guest, and then also ports over into like how to do a job interview well, and like just how to be a good friend. I actually came here in the hope of sort of reverse engineering some of this information because I happen to have a very, very niche podcast, and I want to know how to be better at soliciting guests, like getting guests interested. It's never gonna be a big thing. That's not even the goal, right? It's like the side project to a side project. So I can't say like this is a good way to promote your book. Like that would be a lie, and that's wrong. I do have a very interesting gimmick that's behind the concept of the podcast, so that definitely gets people's attention. Like,
You
I
gotta
want
tell
to.
us what it is.
Oh, I do. Okay, so
Yeah.
so it's a VR podcast.
Cool.
You're actually, the idea is like, I don't know how successful this is going to be because YouTube has a lot of limits on how long a VR video can be, despite the fact that you can upload like a 24-hour Nyan Cat video. When I was doing this in 2022, a VR video could only be 40 minutes long, and that's not really a good length. And then there are other problems. But so it's something I only do like once every couple months. Like I only record an episode once every couple months. But it's a thing where some of them find the gimmick so interesting that they're like, oh yeah, I want to be in that, because like the audience can put on a VR headset and like be in the room with the conversants, which is cool.
Very cool.
I like they do their own video in their own room, on the other side of the planet, and then I just composite them in to the VR sphere. And the other thing is that I've discovered that a really good way to solicit guests is, you discover the person through whatever it is they're known for. You become a Patreon supporter because money talks. It seems shallow, but it isn't. It's a good way to say, like, I like what you do and I want you to do it more.
Sure.
And then you just say, here are the things that you've said that I find interesting. Do you want to be a part of this? And so do you think that's a good method? Is there some way I could take that further? Is there something obvious that I'm doing wrong? Just anything. Any thoughts you have related to that?
Podcast Guest Exchange is a subreddit.
Oh, cool.
Oh, good call.
Podcast Guest Exchange, all one word, subreddit. I never say it loud enough the first time. But you can literally go on there. If you talk about the bullet points of what makes you interested, you can go on there and say, I would like to be a guest on podcasts. Here are the things I would be good to talk about. But there's the flip side. I have a podcast and I'm looking for guests of this type. And I think he said
so like an AMA, but for like real people.
Yeah, and you just they have a very specific format, so go read the rules. But
Okay, yeah, of course, yeah.
But you basically, in your case, you'd say, I am doing one of the world's only VR podcasts, and then you list out these are the kinds of guests I'm looking for, and everyone in that Reddit are either hosts or people who want to be guests. I've been on a lot of cool podcasts that I've never even heard of because I saw a call like, oh my God, I would be great for that. And you just reach out.
Okay, sub question since there's no line. So I've had some Z-list celebs on there that I'm really proud of, and it wasn't because I want to build hype. It's really because like they're thinkers who I found interesting, and it just wound up being like a really awesome 5-hour-long conversation. That was my goal. So along those lines, if there's a specific person whose interest I'm trying to capture, do you have any advice regarding that?
Send them books about Mexican cheese.
There you go.
Yeah, it did catch my interest. Yeah.
Just in case, so.
So you will be surprised, though, who will say yes, especially for something as unique and fascinating as what you're doing.
You're absolutely right. That's been the experience so far. Yeah.
So my all-time, this is going to sound like a name drop thing, and it is. I got Max Brooks on my podcast, who everybody knows wrote World War Z, Zombie Survival Guide, and I think the reason why is I am a huge Max Brooks fan. And I've listened to like all his podcast interviews, and I knew there was a topic that he had never talked about. And it was basically balancing art and family, because so many people seem to have wonderful careers, not such a good marriage, not such a good relationship with their kids. He seemed like a good counterexample to me, and I wondered if he had thoughts on it. So I said, I just looked him up, and I found his PR contact, and I just sent that. I said, hey, look, I'd love to have him on to talk about this topic. I didn't think there was going to be a chance. And then he said yes. And I got to talk to my hero for an hour. Awesome. So if you bring something unique and interesting, you never know who's going to say yes. So it's worth it just to reach out to whatever form that is. Like those PR people, they don't just delete your email, apparently, because mine got through somehow.
When I was looking for, I wanted a big name author to blurb my books. and I made up a list of like 7 authors who were very similar.
Okay, like a short list.
Yeah. Weirdly, none of them wrote about meth, but so of the 7 names, there were 6 mid-name kind of range names. I felt like surely one of them will say yes, but the biggest name was Faith Hunter, and
Oh, good name.
all the 6 said no. Faith Hunter is the one who said yes.
You'll be surprised.
Yeah, and so she read my book over Christmas and then blurbed it, and I was like, so just ask. If you've got an interesting pitch, you catch their eye.
Yeah.
You just never know.
Let's get this last question.
Yeah.
This will probably be the last one.
Hello.
Oh. Yeah, there. Yeah, hi. I have a website that's really popular among reading teachers, but I know to get out there more, I should try to get on podcasts, but I'm a very quiet, very private person. So I'm just wondering, does it get less scary? Like the first time you go on a podcast, is it, I don't know, does it get easier, or are you just, are you guys naturally extroverts?
Ooh, no, I'm a huge introvert.
Okay.
It's a mask. You just put on a mask.
All right.
Yeah.
You're the extroverted version of yourself, and
I'm still me. Introversion versus extroversion is how I recharge my batteries.
Mhm.
Sure.
But the persona of me in this room, you can ask Joe. He hangs out with me all the time. But this is me, like to 11. All right. It's a little more y'all. But it's a mask. It's something that I can put on to give me that distance
Mhm.
that allows me to be comfortable.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be, and that's not to say don't be authentic, but you have to find the tool that's going to help you get through the day.
I agree.
And this is for 5 days, I have to be on. This is work for me now. Best job in the world, but it is work. And if I didn't have that mask, I would be curled up in a ball in the back right now.
Ming, you were nodding vigorously. You think it gets easier?
Oh yeah, for sure. This is what I love about podcasts is while it does reach a wide audience, while you're recording it, you're in a pretty insular environment. If we're recording in a studio, it's usually me and the guest, and that's it. We're in a room. If we're doing it online, you're in your own house or your own office, and that I think puts a lot of people at ease. I find people come in and they're very nervous. Or I've never done this before. It's weird. Once you get behind that mic, I don't know if it's the microphone itself. People start opening up. But after that, I think, as hosts, we're pretty trained to put people at ease. We're pretty used to putting people at ease. We don't want our guests to be nervous. We don't want our guests to be scared. We want our guests to open up and be honest and speak freely. And it's partially our job to do that. And I think you'll experience that with anybody that you podcast with.
Absolutely. And I think there are lots of techniques to handle it. So by my nature, I tried to get to this room early so that I couldn't lose it. I saw that there was too much noise. I spent the last hour reading Super Supportive on my phone in a corner where I had mapped out the sight lines and no one would see me. There is elements of masking and putting it in place, but I think there are also elements of learning and training, because you can teach yourself to do extraordinary things, and desensitization, I think, can often be synonymous with confidence in yourself. Depending on how aggressive you are in trying to up your skill set and knowing it's a skill, some of it might just be like you can do stuff that makes you succeed in a small way so you have confidence in your ability to hold a conversation. If you're really worried, improv classes, phenomenal. Everyone wants you to be happy. Toastmasters exists for a reason. Watching other interviews. When I was young and I had only a couple bits of interest and I couldn't always talk to everyone about dragons, one of the things my sister talked about, who was a successful lawyer, is she tried to know just a little bit about a lot of things so that if she was ever at a work meeting or meeting someone new, she could say, oh, I've heard about that, and know just enough to ask them a question about something they cared about. And so even now, I have a habit where a couple times a year, I have something called a cultural capital goal, where I just try to learn something that I can use in a conversation that's not related really strongly to one of my interests. I think I might learn how to make cojita now, because that sounds pretty awesome and delicious, but never know what it's going to come up. Never know what it's going to be like. Yeah, I was on this super weird panel and I learned how to make cojita, but you seem very interested in cooking. So there are lots of ways to make yourself more confident and more capable. and it absolutely gets easier, and it is absolutely a point of confidence
Totally agree.
that you can train.
Totally agree. Hey, okay, we're almost out of time. So thank you for the questions. Thank you to everyone on the Twitch stream for the questions. Hey, can we give a round of applause for our panel? And I want to make sure that everybody has a chance. We're going to start right here with Bob, just to tell people again where they can find you, both online and digital media, whatever, but also then where else you're going to be for the rest of DragonCon.
Me and this guy are going to be on a panel all about puns
Yeah,
at
we're
4. That's
aware.
my next panel.
We're well aware.
And you can find me tellsbybob.com or Tells by Bob on most of the social media platforms. And if you want to read Redneck Meth Wizard books sticker, come get one.
Darren.
Yep, we're doing the pun panel at 4 in the Hyatt, and then at 7 we're doing how to write a kick-ass opening for your book. So for writers, that might be things that would interest you. I have bookmarks for my various books up here, and I'm at DarrenKennedy.com. And look me up.
My podcast studio is called A Shared Universe, ashareduniverse.com, at A Shared Universe on social media. I'll be on the Walk of Fame today and tomorrow. They put me next to John Barrowman, so just follow him singing or dancing. I'll be right next to him.
My website's pretty easy to find, jeffreynix.com. The R and the Y can sometimes confuse people. Because of some luck, the first book is going to be completely free if you want to get the link to that. I will say I talked to a lady who was very helpful for me, and she asked me to remind people that if you are an author, please look into some of the information about what's happening with Audible. John from Falstaff, Daniel Green have put out really good information about something that could make this a more inhospitable place for those of us who want to make this our living. And there's a petition that is really important. If you want to skip my books, I guarantee you the Meth Wizards will be more fun, and use the Google you would
How about that?
use on my website trying to find that petition if you could.
And I am Clint Hall. Very easy to find, ClintHall.com, at Clint Hall on Instagram. I have 2 books out. Terminator Learns Magic and Uses It Against Us. And then young adult, time travel, reality star. And then, of course, my trilogy coming next year. My podcast is called The Experience, Conversations with Creatives. You can find it on all major platforms. But the easiest thing to do is just go to ClintHall.com. All the links are there. Thank you all so much for making this such a fantastic panel, and enjoy the rest of your DragonCon.
Thanks, guys.
It's 2 o'clock. How about that? We did it.
Oh, yeah, big fan, huge fan.
A podcast guest
Yeah.
exchange.
Thing where at this point, I'll just
I've used
Polar
it many
bear,
times.
That's awesome.
Both
Ice Bear's the
looking
ultimate polar bear.
for guests and
exactly.
getting shows to be on.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
they look cool. Oh yeah, so I built 2 podcast studios in New Jersey. I rent them out by the hour to podcasters. We do remote stuff too. We help people launch and record podcasts, and we help experienced podcasters get
Okay.
better. So.
Yeah. I do Huntsville
Awesome.
Comic and
Get done.
Culture Expo.
Somewhere north of 14 million words, 100
I
million.
love this.
Yeah. It's a vendor con,
Congrats.
so, but they do have the occasional
Oh,
panel.
cool. Okay, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's just a block off. You know, but I have a lot of fun there.
Yeah, oh, for Sunday, Monday, I can't remember. Yeah. Thank you. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Please do. I'd love to jump on some cool panels there, but I'm not going to be there this year.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
I won't be there.